Have you ever wondered what happens to someone who racially discriminates against a millionaire? Well, you will get a pretty good idea after you see this. The grand lobby of Fairview National Bank exuded sophistication. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and the air smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh flowers. Behind the counters, tellers worked diligently, their polite smiles reserved for a clientele used to impeccable service. At the far end of the room, the bank manager, Susan Harding, sat in her glass-walled office, a picture of professionalism in her tailored gray suit. That afternoon, a woman named Danielle Carter stepped into the bank. She was tall, poised, and dressed in a simple black dress paired with comfortable flats. Her natural hair was styled neatly, and she carried a sleek leather handbag. Everything about her screamed style and class. Danielle's demeanor was calm and confident, but as she looked around the lobby, she couldn't help but notice the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Conversations quieted, and a few heads turned her way, their glances lingering longer than necessary. Danielle approached the information desk, where a young receptionist greeted her with a nervous smile. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" the receptionist asked. "Hi," Danielle said, her voice friendly but firm. "I'm here to discuss opening a high-value account. I'd like to speak with the manager." The receptionist's smile faltered briefly. "Of course. Please wait here." She scurried off toward Susan's office, casting a quick glance back at Danielle, as if to confirm she'd heard correctly. Inside her office, Susan looked up from her computer. The receptionist leaned in and whispered, "There's a woman here asking to open a high-value account. She's—" The receptionist hesitated, her voice dropping lower. "Well, she doesn't really look like our typical client." Susan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She, she's not dressed like someone opening a high-value account," the receptionist said, choosing her words carefully. She thought that Susan would notice her clothes, but the first thing she noticed was the color of her skin, since to her it was seemingly very distracting. Susan sighed, closing her laptop. "All right, I'll handle it." When Susan walked into the lobby, her professional smile barely masked the judgment flickering in her eyes as she assessed Danielle. "Hello, I'm Susan Harding, the branch manager. How can I help you today?" Danielle extended her hand. "Hi, I'm Danielle Carter. I'm interested in opening a new account." Susan shook her hand briefly, her grip loose. "What type of account are you looking to open?" "A high-value account," Danielle said. "I recently liquidated some assets, and I'm looking for a secure place to manage my funds." Susan's smile tightened. "I see. And may I ask the approximate value of the assets you're referring to?" "Around $8 million, Danielle replied, her tone matter-of-fact. Susan's eyebrows shot up briefly before she quickly regained her composure. "That's quite a sum," she said. "Do you have documentation to support this?" she asked while being filled with doubt. "Of course," Danielle said, wondering why would this woman ask her something so unnecessary, as if she would come to the bank unprepared. Reaching into her bag, she pulled out a folder containing bank statements, proof of sale for her previous investments, and other relevant documents. Susan glanced at the papers but didn't take them. Instead, she crossed her arms. "Ms. Carter, I'll be honest. Accounts of this size are usually handled through our private banking division. I'm not sure this branch can accommodate your needs." Danielle frowned. "I was under the impression that this branch offers comprehensive services for all account holders, regardless of account size." "We do," Susan said, her tone growing sharper. "But we're selective about the clients we take on. Maintaining such accounts requires a certain level of mutual understanding and trust." Danielle's eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you saying you don't trust me?" Susan hesitated, clearly flustered. "That's not what I'm saying. I just think you might find a better fit at another institution, perhaps one more familiar with your circumstances." Danielle's jaw tightened. "And what circumstances would those be?" she said while hoping that it was just a misunderstanding. Before we get back to the story, we would like to ask you to show us your support by subscribing and liking this video. Don't be Susan. Don't reject us. Now let's get back to the story. Susan glanced around, lowering her voice. "Ms. Carter, I'm trying to save us both some time. Clients opening accounts of this magnitude typically arrive with prior introductions or recommendations. It's standard procedure. Danielle took a deep breath, steadying herself. So let me get this straight. Despite having the necessary documentation and funds, you're refusing to open an account for me because I didn't come with a referral? Or is it because of how I look? Susan's face flushed. She knew that Danielle was catching on to her prejudice, which was seemingly starting to uncontrollably ooze out of her. I didn't say that, Susan said with a panicked voice. You didn't have to, Danielle said, her voice calm but firm. I'd like to speak with someone higher up. Susan's lips pressed into a thin line. I am the highest-ranking manager at this branch. There's no one else for you to speak with. Danielle nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. All right, then I'll escalate this myself. The next morning, Danielle sat in the corporate offices of Fairview National Bank, meeting with the regional director, Michael Green. He had personally requested to see her after receiving a detailed complaint about the incident at the branch. Ms. Carter, Michael said, leaning forward, I'd like to sincerely apologize for your experience. What happened yesterday is not reflective of our values as an institution. Danielle nodded politely. Thank you, Mr. Green. But apologies alone won't address the deeper issue here. What happened wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was systemic bias. Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're absolutely right, and I assure you, we take this matter very seriously. May I ask how you'd like to proceed? Danielle placed the same folder of documents on the table. I'd still like to open an account with Fairview National, but I need to know that your team is committed to creating a better environment for all clients, not just the ones who fit a certain profile. Michael nodded firmly. You have my word, Ms. Carter. We'll begin by addressing the behavior at the branch level and implementing mandatory training programs for all employees. Later that week, Susan was called into a meeting with Michael and a representative from the bank's Human Resources Department. As she listened to the complaints about her conduct, her confidence crumbled. She hadn't expected her actions to lead to such serious consequences. Susan, Michael said, his tone stern, Fairview National Bank has built its reputation on trust, respect, and inclusivity. Your actions not only jeopardize that reputation, but also deeply disrespected a valued client. I didn't mean to, Susan began, but Michael raised a hand to stop her. Intent doesn't negate impact, he said firmly. Effective immediately, you'll be placed on administrative leave while we review your position. Susan's face turned pale. Please, Mr. Green, give me a chance to make it right. Michael's expression softened slightly. That's not for me to decide. You'll have the opportunity to respond during the review process. Over the next few months, Fairview National rolled out new training programs focused on diversity and customer service. Danielle became a trusted advisor for the bank, consulting on policies to ensure all clients were treated with respect and dignity. Her story, once shared publicly, sparked conversations about discrimination in the financial industry and the importance of accountability. As for Susan, she never returned to her position at Fairview. The incident served as a humbling reminder of the consequences of her actions and the importance of treating everyone with fairness. The bank was even disappointed that someone like that managed to come to such a high position in their institution. But at least they now knew that people like that are part of their institution. And Danielle? She continued to thrive, her account at Fairview growing as she invested in community programs and businesses. For her, the experience was a reminder of her own strength and the power of standing up against injustice, no matter how subtle it might seem.